Hello and welcome back to the channel, everybody. My name is Dark Sage Walker, and the last couple of days have been a real mess for me. Okay, so soundtrack-wise, we are doing the jazz soundtrack again, and before I really get into talking about what kind of a mess the last few days have been, let's just get right into what I want to do for today's run, which is, well, and for a good number of subsequent runs, we are jumping back into the Arcana Spotlight series. No, not with lightning aspect, the one of the most underwhelming things I've seen since the original iteration of the campfire. No, we are going to be talking about Dash Arcana. Dash Arcana are one of those kind of unsung heroes of your run that can do a lot for you if you know how to use them. And as with every other Arcana Spotlight, I'm going to be starting with the top element, Fire. And we're going to be starting with Ignition Rush, the dash that creates a nice little burning shield around me. Now, unfortunately, I wish it had more actual stunning hitboxes, but there are a number of people out there that swear by how Ignition Rush works. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of it, but then again, this particular one isn't necessarily for me. Or rather, it is, but not in the same vein. This one is more so for all of you out there who have been looking forward to this, and I hope there's been a number of you, because otherwise this sounds really stupid. As far as what we're going to do for this run, I think what I'm going to do is we are going to go with Dynamic Disarray, and then for our signature, we're going to go for something... what would be the best way to do this? Probably Shearing Chain. So a lot of wind, some electricity, and then Ignition Rush. And let's start... We'll actually start with the Merchant's Cart and hopefully pick up a good number of relics along the way. Now, unless otherwise specified, I will of course be starting with the Retro Floor Plan, because the Retro Floor Plan is kind of my preferred way to play the game, if I'm being honest with you. Now, you do get a greater variety of rooms when you're using when you're not using the Retro Floor Plan, I should say. But the Retro Floor Plan gives a sort of interesting challenge in how combat handles that's you just can't beat it, man. But of course, the real reason to take Retro Floor Plan is that you get a ton of money. And because I'm not starting with another Chaos Arcana, I want to make sure that I've got as much money as possible coming in so I can afford to upgrade my Arcana and buy more relics. Honestly, not a bad way to live life if everything wasn't so expensive. But anyway, the way that one goes about using Ignition Rush is typically you use it to break up enemy formations and just score a little bit of extra damage. It's there to help you get in with other spells. Kind of like how the recently dropped Vortex Veil works. Though I would say Vortex Veil is the kind of big brother of this, but it's a standard and not a dash, and therefore we're not looking at that. In the case of this run, I'm using it to get in with the air spinners, and that will naturally help me get in with Shearing Chain. Then Dynamic Disarray is there for range and control. Get out of here, Gold. No one likes you. And there's our ignition rush upgrade. And Whirling Tornado might actually not be bad as a way of making good use of that initial hitbox. Alright, we're gonna want that. We're gonna want that. And I'm not sure about Lay's drum yet. I'm gonna need to think about that. But all of that actually does service Ignition Rush very well because it lets you get Ignition Rush lets you get in, and then assuming that you take a couple of hits afterwards, then something like Lay's drum will help you out even further by essentially forcing enemies to back off. As you can see, the entire idea of the run is to use that initial stunning hitbox of Ignition Rush to get in and start using Air Spinner to clear out the path. Now, after an enemy gets hit by that initial Ignition Rush hitbox, it takes them like a few frames to get hit by another one. So you really need to get in there and start working fast. And of course, the upgrade adds an additional explosion. So you create a fiery aura, and then it goes boom, and that will do more damage and help keep things under control while you're getting work done. Now, I've already alluded to this a little bit when I was talking about Vortex Veil earlier, but I do think that there are Arcana that do Ignition Rush's job better. Vortex Veil being one of them. I also think Cardus Prime and Chaotic Echoes also do its job better. That's not to say that Ignition Rush has no place, because if you're looking for a specific playstyle or looking to use specific Arcanas, then Ignition Rush can do things like, help keep combos running, or just act as that, get in to lay some hits Arcana, so that you don't have to use up a standard slot for something like that. That was not smart. I don't know why I did that. But because of what the overall plan is when you're using Ignition Rush as a combo starter, it also makes things like, obviously I'm using Whirling Tornado, but it also makes things like a quick tap of Shock Nova or Searing Crown really pop. But this is also one where I would say make sure to have a good defense on you, as you are going to be left in very close proximity to the enemies. So considering what your game plan is, you might even want to run Cardus Prime or Vortex Veil alongside Ignition Rush, just because of what your game plan in general is going to be. Stupid spikes in the corner. Alright, we can give Dr. Song our token of health. Thank you very much. And I will gladly accept that Elixir of Might. You are a queen. Not really caring too much for Deferred Dynamo. So probably not going to grab that, even though it would be effective against... Sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Okay, even though it would be effective against Freya, I'm not necessarily using it for that purpose. I was really hoping to get an upgraded air spinner. Man, that's disappointing. Okay, but we do have a little bit more ranged control. What I'm trying to decide now is if I want to try pairing Ignition Rush with Perfect Storm. I don't think it would work that well, but it's a niche that could be explored, so if one of you guys want to try it, by all means. Alright, what are you selling, good sir? Not much! I'm just gonna leave that be. So as you can see, that initial hitstun box, yeah, that's kind of how I meant to say that, does affect bosses as well. So it's a good way to start your boss combo as well without having to spend any of your standard Arcana resources. One stage down, 2 more to go. Oh, I don't know how much I care for Voltaic Needle. Someone did have a build suggestion that's going to use it, so when that comes up, I will happily use it there. And who knows, maybe I'll end up coming up with an opinion of Voltaic Needle that's a little bit different than what I had initially deemed. Also, don't do what I did there. Don't just run through the pool of toxic horrors. It's just not very good for you. Okay, we're definitely taking this because not only will it upgrade our basic, but it will also increase my basic's critical hit chance. And now we have a better chance of getting the upgrade for for dynamic disarray. Now, as you can see in that room, I wanted to play it a bit more carefully, just because there were the, you know, happy fun time nitroglycerin barrels. Ow. This is Ring of Recycling? Yeah, what did this do again? Oh, every time I grab a charged signature but don't use it, it gives me a shield. It's very infrequent that I would not use a charged signature, but hey, whatever. Alright, well, on the positive end, I didn't see a waste of space with the upgraded air spinners. On the flip side, don't see a whole lot here that I actually want. I think I will replace Voltaic Needle with Burn Cycle, though. Cactus. But no, this is not the right build for that. Water Pulse Agent is nice, but again, not the run for it. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, this seems like a really safe game plan, how come you don't do this more often? Slow down. Remember, some enemies want to be in close range to you. That means that you're putting yourself in harm's way every time you go to use this strategy, which is why I say you need to have something that strikes all around you when you get in close, and that will come up. It's also why I'm taking a rather disproportionate number of defensive relics. And to be fair, some of these freebies are kind of nice too. Now, the upside of this strategy is that because you are just rushing into the middle of enemy moves, well, so long as you do it right, you oftentimes get a jump on the enemies just because they're not necessarily quite active yet when you run into them. But that's assuming that you start every fight off right with Ignition Rush. If you're doing what I'm doing and just running in like a dumbass, well, you know. So generally when you run over a pit, you either want to charge as fast as you can into a battle room, or you want to take a moment and let Ignition Rush refresh so that you can get that opening advantage on your fights. And hopefully that all makes sense. Now remember, it's not a constant hitbox, because after you score that first hit, there's the Dynamic Disarray upgrade. I'm going to wait on taking it, though, just in case. Yeah, after that first hitbox, it takes somewhere between, I want to say, 10 and 15 frames to get another hitbox going on the same enemy. So it's constant, but not, if that makes sense. Smooth. But yeah, as you can see, if you do it right, it scatters the enemies far enough that they don't have much of a chance to get in and do what they want to do. It's also a good way to get in on ranged enemies because you're dashing at them with an active hitbox. Just be aware that if you're using a basic other than air spinner, this strategy is going to have a hard time working. The other bonus of having Whirling Tornado on this build is that it does allow me to block enemy projectiles with the tornado itself, which is kind of nice. Alright, let's see if we get something particularly nice. I mean, not really. We've got the subject of another Dash Arcana Spotlight series. And we've got a failed experiment. I don't know about any of these. I'm just gonna go grab the upgraded Dynamic Disarray. Now, another thing that you can do with Ignition Rush is you can set it up and then use a Jump Arcana to jump in on your enemies. Now, it helps if it's a Jump Arcana that does its damage all at once, because the Ignition Rush does scatter enemies. That's right, birds. Alright, not bad. We will be ignoring Inferno Beam, thank you. And now that the enemies are a little bit less mirror shieldy, let's go ahead and put that back on. Okay, we've got Ignition Rush, let's just go ahead and get in there. Ooh. You won't see me complaining about that one. I'm good. Like, pretty much at this point, my Arcana are set, so I'm not too worried about changing them. So this would be the time for something like Dagger of Midas to show up. That would be really nice. smooth. I just fired a warning shot across her nose. I have enough defensive stuff that I'm not too worried about taking another defensive Arcana. Now, I would say that Lemo's Leaf would be effective here, but considering what the game plan is typically going to be for Ignition Rush, you don't necessarily want to use your dash that defensively. You're actually trying to get really hyper-aggressive to either scatter mooks or to land a stunning hitbox on a boss. So Lemo's Leaf actually comes off as being kind of underwhelming with this particular one. But that doesn't mean that Lemo's Leaf is a bad relic. It just means it's a bit situational. And the other thing you're going to notice is that against these higher level mooks, just dashing right into them to interrupt their plans oftentimes keeps the elemental ones from casting their first spell. Which generally means against the Frost Knights, you are interrupting them creating their ice shield. Which means that you're actually taking them down a good deal faster than you normally would be. So, I mean, pretty much just a win-win, if you ask me. And dash into the Frost Knights. Now, that room didn't go as well as I would have liked because of the Ice Mages. Or if you want to get technical, the Cryomancers. But that doesn't mean that the plan absolutely failed. That just means that there's more going on there than we were really capable of handling effectively. But the overall plan still worked. Now, the Tainted Scroll is going to give us lots of signature charge to further spam our Shearing Chain. Damn. The obvious advantage to having Ignition Rush against a boss is that so long as its cooldown is allowing you to cast it, you don't need to use a standard on the boss in order to stun them. So long as you're within range, as long as they're within range of your dash, you can stun them with it and still get the job done. Ow. Thank you, water cushion. Ooh, Storm Entourage is another really good orbital. Oops. Hang on just a moment. I accidentally unplugged my headphones. Alright, that was embarrassing. Sorry about that. What I was going to say is that Storm Entourage is another really good orbital. Would I recommend running it alongside Ignition Rush? Probably not. It's another one of those spells that I think does Ignition Rush's job better. But like I said, just because there's something that does its job better doesn't necessarily mean that you always want to use. Because there's very much the possibility that you want something else in that standard Arcana spot, which to me is the reason why you would use this. The whole idea behind Ignition Rush is that it's a combo starter. Now, in late game, it's less of a combo starter just because you don't need to worry so much about the essentially how many spells you can get off because the enemy's stun timers are so short. But all in all, you get the idea. I want to drop something to pick up Sidewinder's badge. Actually, maybe I don't. I think I'll be okay. And this is kind of what I was hoping for when I picked up Megalodon Tooth, is that it would synergize well with the Ring of Recycling, which it seems to do. Owie. But yeah, that fight went a little long just because Sura doesn't stay stunned for very long and he's got more health than the other bosses. So, your mileage may vary with Ignition Rush. I personally think it's kind of fun to use. It's not one of my personal top picks for a Dash Arcana, but I see its usefulness. And honestly, there's a lot of fun things you can do with this. I would say if you want a really fun build where the whole goal is to just dash into enemies to take them out, try pairing that with Cardus Prime. That to me sounds like a lot of fun, although honestly, if you want my full-on opinion on that, you could do the same thing with Chaotic Echoes, but we'll get to that Arcana when we get to it. But I'd say this is a good start to the Dash Arcana Spotlight series, so I hope you guys are enjoying. Obviously, I would like you to hit the like button, subscribe to my channel for future content. The birds also want to say hello because they're just excited. They're just listening to me talk and they're reacting to me, in case you're wondering what's up with that. So, thank you guys very much for your continued support. I appreciate you coming to spend your free time with me. I will say goodbye. Birds say goodbye as well, and I'll see you in the next one. My name is Dark Sage Walker, and chirp chirp everybody.